What is up, YouTube? JankyYGO here. My name is Michael, and today we are talking about the new punk rock archetype that is coming out over in the OCG. So, I don't know anything about these cards. I didn't even look at them. I just know that they're like punk rock themed. That's the only thing I know about these. So let's just jump right into it. So, first up is uh I'm just gonna call it UK Ukioi. It's probably going to be like UK. It's UK Punk. I'm gonna say UK Punk Sharakusai, which I'm guessing. I'm gonna guess as a singer because it looks like he's holding a microphone. Level 3 Psychic Type Tuner effect. 1200 attack, 600 defense, and each effect are hard ones for turns. First effect says you can pay 600 life points, special summon one Punk Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand and or field as fusion material. Second effect is during the opponent's turn. Quick effect, you can pay 600 life points immediately after this effect resolves. Synchro summon one Punk Synchro monster. And okay, so this is a lot of things. First thing to go over is that it's a level 3 psychic, and that is relevant because we have things like emergency teleport. Granted, emergency teleport's only at 1 over here in the TCG, but it is something to keep in mind when you're building this deck. Second thing is that this card is your enabler for not only fusion summoning, but also synchro summoning because it's also a tuner. So you can synchro summon on your opponent's turn if you don't want to fusion summon. And because each effect is hard once per turn, if you have multiple ways to summon multiple of these punk monsters, maybe you fusion summon with one, and then you summon it back somehow, and then you synchro summon on your opponent's turn using the quick effect. So that's something to keep in mind. I think this card's pretty good, and I like it. I play, as some of you know, because I've done it, I play Archfiends, paying life points. Your life points don't matter until they're at 0. So, 600, that's fine cost. Overall, pretty decent card. Next up, we got Gabu Punk Wagon, or GA Punk Wagon. Looks like he's a drummer of the band. Level 3 Psychic Tuner. Effect monster, 900 attack, 600 defense. First and second effects of this card's name can only be used once per turn. So you can pay 600 life points, add one Punk spell card from your deck to your hand. That's pretty good. When a Punk monster you control is targeted by an attack, or for an attack, or by an opponent's card effect, quick effect, you can draw one card. So it helps if your opponent's like targeting stuff. You get at least a card back from it. On summon, you just pay 600 life points. I mean, it's not on summon, it's an activated effect. So they have plenty of time to ghost over it and stuff like that. Or effect failure. They have plenty of time to respond. But I think that this card is fine. My initial reaction is it also is a level 3 Psychic Tuner, which is level 3 Psychic, which, you know, the whole deck might be, and if that's the case, the whole deck can be emergency teleported out, and that's pretty important. As far as this card goes, you're probably going to run 3 of it for its first effect more than its second effect. Its second effect is good, but it's more like if it comes up, it comes up. Next up, we got Joe Punk, Madam Spider. Level 3 Earth Psychic Tuner effect monster. If they're all tuners, then that means we're going to have to, you know, it's going to be an engine rather than a full archetype. But anyway, 900 attack, 600 defense, and you can only use each effect of this card's name once per turn. Pay 600 life points, add one Punk trap card from your deck to your hand. Second effect is when you activate a Punk card or card effect that targets a card your opponent controls. Quick effect, you can target one face up your monster your opponent controls, have its attack until the end of this turn. Okay, once again, you're probably going to play this, depending on how good the traps are. If the traps are really good, you're probably going to play this because it just searches a trap card, and that's pretty good in general. And on top of that, its second effect isn't bad, especially if, like I said, if the traps are good enough. Maybe they are like, maybe this is actually like a stun deck where you were gonna play a bunch of traps and stuff like that. If that's the case, then this card is really really good. And on top of that, the last effect right there is you target them maybe with one of their trap cards and everything. Maybe one of their trap cards is like a breakthrough skill, a searchable breakthrough skill for the archetype. Let's just say I don't know if that's true or not, but like because we'll have to do that. Maybe negate something that your opponent controls, and then you get a negate, or then you get to have another attack, or so on and so forth, just to kind of help in battle. I don't think this card's staying on the field though. I think you're gonna be synchro summoning with it, but that's just all depends on how everything is. All right, moving on to no punk. This name Seamin. Uh, Level 3 Earth Psychic Tuner effect, 600 attack and 600 defense. Its first and second effects are hard ones for turns each. You can pay 600 life points, add one punk monster from your deck to your hand, except for itself, easy 3 of. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one punk monster you control, gain 600 attack. So, this one's a little bit better than the other cards. It searches the monsters specifically. While the monsters don't have ways to summon themselves out, usually searching a monster is better than searching a spell or trap card, unless the deck has stronger spells and stuff like that, and traps more specifically. But as a general rule, searching monsters is usually a little bit better. In this case, its second effect as well, when you synchro summon with it, because it is a tuner, or if you fusion summon, you can use this to increase the punk monster you control. Also, it's not until the end of the turn, so it just gets that while it's face up on the field, the monster that you use that on. So that's pretty cool. I think this card is definitely a 3 of, so the searchers probably are all going to be 3 of. It just depends on what we have. And so is like the one that can fusion summon stuff. This deck seems like a pretty easy, like all the cards are 3 ofs so far. Alright, last of the main deck monsters is No Punk Foxy Tune, which is a level 8 light beast effect monster. It's the first one that's not a psychic. 2300 attack and 2600 defense. Its first effect is you contribute one punk monster to special summon this card from your hand. Second effect states you can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard to send one card from your hand to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon a punk monster from your deck except for a level 8. And its third effect states once per turn, when this card destroys a monster by battle, you gain life points equal to the original attack of that monster. So the first effect is pretty good because with these high level monsters, you want them you want to have a way to summon themselves out, and so that's not bad. I mean, it's not the best way to summon it, but it's not the worst. As far as its second effect goes, you have to go minus 2 because you're sending this card and another card to the graveyard, but you get any of them from the deck. So that might be and you go down in card, you go down to -1, but that still might be enough, especially because you can break even in card economy if you throw out one of the searchers. So the second effect, I mean, you go negative, but you can kind of break even after everything, so that's not that bad. As far as its second effect, or its last effect goes, it's there to offset some of the paying of life points and stuff like that, because the idea of this deck is it might be to go and grind out and go long time, and if that's the case, then that last effect, if you do summon it and then you just go beat down mode, might not be the worst option. But I definitely can see why you could still like argue playing 3 of it. You could argue playing 2 of it as well. This thing does get stopped by Ash Blossom, so do like all of these cards. But once again, when you're evaluating cards like this, it's better just to not really think about Ash Blossom. I know that meta relevancy, that's kind of a nod. You shouldn't do that, but still, if they don't have it, or you have like a Called by the Grave or a way to stop the Ash Blossom, you can usually go off. And depending on what their fusion and their synchro does, this card could be an insane starter. So I've talked long enough about this card. So let's move on to the fusion, which is P.U.N.K Carp Rising. So it's a level 8 water fish fusion effect monster, 1,000 attack and 2,600 defense, and it requires 2 punk monsters. Its first and second effects of this card's name can only be used once per turn. Second effect states you contribute this fusion summon card, a special up to 2 punk monsters with different names except level 8 monsters from your hand and or deck in defense position. If this card is used for synchro material, you can target one punk monster you control, and it can attack twice during each battle phase. So this is the setup card, right? So you use this, you maybe attribute it off and everything like that to summon out 2 more if you need it, or you summon this and then you summon a freaking a level 6 or one of your level 3 tuners so that you can synchro summon into the big one, which is probably going to be a level 11. So it appears that the point of this deck is to summon out the fusion or the level 8 and then synchro with that and everything with the level 8s to get other effects. So I think that this card is also pretty fine too. We've seen that first type of effect before in the Prank Kid archetype, where you tribute the rocket to summon 2 back and stuff like that. So we know that that can be good, as that's also kind of a way to recover. Its second effect also helps you push for game as well. So I think this is pretty good. It just depends on what the synchro does, which we're going to talk about right now. So P.U.N.K Amazing Dragon is a level 11 Wind Sea Serpent synchro effect, 3,000 attack, 2,800 defense, and it's a generic in the sense that it requires only one tuner, and any one non-tuner, or any one or more non-tuners. You can only use one effect among the first and second effects of this card's name per turn, so you must choose one of them. You don't get both. So if this card is synchro summon, you can target any number of cards your opponent controls up to the number of level 3 psychic monsters with different names on your field and graveyard and return them to the hand. Its second effect states you can target one punk monster in your graveyard except for itself and special summon it. Okay, so this is kind of like your boss monster. It's more of a respond and break the board type of boss monster. It isn't really for pushing for OTK, but if you do use it, the fusion, dealing 6,000 damage in one battle phase is a lot, especially if you manage to bounce your opponent's field. I don't see this deck throwing out enough monsters to OTK. At least, they don't have any inherent ways so far that we've seen. But that doesn't mean that people won't throw in other cards to make the OTK work and stuff like that. And if this does become an OTK deck, then this card and combined with the second one are really good, because this is going to bounce their field and then you're going to be, clear the way for the OTK. And if not, and it becomes more of a stun deck, this is kind of like your finisher, and it's not necessarily the greatest, but it's still fine. It just depends on what everything is, but it's not a bad card. I think it's a pretty good card for this pretty cool archetype so far. Next up, we're going to talk about Gabu Punk Wild Picking, or GA Punk Wild Picking. Continuous spell card. Its first effect, you can only use its first effect once per turn by name. At the start of damage step, if your punk monster is battling an opponent's monster, you can destroy that opponent's monster. If this card in its spell or trap card is destroyed by opponent's card effect, you can activate this effect for the rest of this turn. Punk monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. So that first effect is actually pretty good. Our monsters aren't necessarily the biggest in terms of attack points, except for the dragon. The dragon's pretty decent, but I think that if you're not synchro summoning or fusion summoning with this deck or anything like that, I mean, you should be, but if you aren't for some reason, maybe they have a way to stop you. That first effect is also pretty good. Or if you have multiple monsters out and your opponent has a monster that can't be destroyed or targeted, or can't be destroyed by battle, or can't be targeted, this is a way to do that. So like, this kind of outs Avramax, for example, which is kind of important because the synchro doesn't, because the synchro targets and you can't target Avramax. So if they have, this monster can't be targeted, this card gets around that, and that's pretty good for the deck. Definitely a cool card. It's not the greatest, but it's not bad either. You might play it just because, but if you play it, it's probably gonna be like a 2-of. But yeah, we're gonna move on to P.U.N.K Crusher Beat, which is a continuous spell card that states if your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a punk monster in your possession, you can target one card your opponent controls and destroy it, and then if this card is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can activate this effect. For the rest of the turn, punk monsters you control cannot be targeted or destroyed by opponent's card effects. I think this card's probably a little bit better. There are a lot of cards that target in Yu-Gi-Oh! And they're gonna they might want to, target one of your cards, destroy it, and then at least you can destroy a card back. So maybe this saves you from OTK. And if they like Feather Duster you game 2, depending on what the traps do and stuff, maybe they're gonna want to bring in Feather Duster. They think they're going to, but then this is going to protect your monsters and stuff like that. Same with the other effect. It's kind of funny that this has a pseudo protection from targeting, and this has like protection from battle ones. And then the second effect also like reinstates the fact that this will like protect your monsters for the turn and everything, which is kind of cool. These are definitely both cool cards. I just kind of wish that one of them was a search card for the deck. I know that we have searchers in the monsters, but being able, for example, to search one of the spell cards or search another monster would make this deck go from probably a tier 2 deck at best so far. Like I said, it depends on what the traps do. To like tier 1 to 1.5, or at least have like contestant to be a good rogue deck. It just depends on what the traps do. Speaking of traps, we're gonna move on to Joe Punk Dangerous Gabu, which is a normal trap card. Target one effect monster your opponent controls, negates effects. Then, if you control a punk monster, you gain life points equal to the targeted monster's original attack. So I was right. There was a searchable breakthrough skill. Okay. That's funny. I didn't know that, but that makes sense, I guess. I figured that that's kind of like that seemed like the correct like way to do this trap searcher is to have like a thing. So when I said that, I was just like, that's probably the way to do it. But anyway, that's pretty funny. Um, I think that this card is like actually pretty good, especially if like the whole deck. If the deck becomes like a very like stun heavy trap reliant deck, um, this is a good card for the deck specifically, and that makes the searcher of the trap cards better than the other ones, especially because the spell cards kind of, gave me a lackluster, and then the trap card, this is like probably better. This is better than most things, because a lot of decks, when you're playing, they have to activate effects to like combo off other monsters. And sometimes the first effect is the one that you need to stop. Sometimes, you don't stop the first thing. Sometimes you do. It's a case by case basis. And against the decks where you just need to stop the first thing and everything and negates effects, this is really good. And it offsets all the life points you're paying as well. So I definitely think this is a pretty cool card and a decent one nonetheless. That you're probably going to play 3 of just because you can search it at the very least. Even if this is an OTK deck, I still think you probably play this card. Alright, last but not least, we got Joe Punk, uh, Nashiwari Surprise. It's a normal trap card, and its effect states you can target one face down card your opponent controls, or if you control a punk monster, you can target one face up card your opponent controls and destroy it. Okay, that's a basic pop effect. That's also pretty good. It's a one for one, but it's a searchable one for one, and like I said, that might make it like relevant for you to play it. I think that this card is pretty decent because you're probably gonna have a punk monster, especially if you summon the trap searcher and then search this. You're probably gonna just have this out and pop a card. And if you even if you don't, there are some back row decks. So at the end of turn, you can like pop a face down, like a set full of trap card. I think this card is just pretty good as well. So, but that's gonna do it for this video. If it's your birthday today, happy birthday! If you want to send meaningful deck profiles or replays, my email is in the description. Love to see them. If you like this archetype, or you have, if you can tell, or anything like that, or have any thoughts on it, you can let me know in the comments down below. And of course, and as always, have a wonderful day.